War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to War Room Pandemic. This is episode, 306, 29th of July, year of our Lord, 2020. So much going on today. In this segment, we've got one of the great other heroes, Lu Da. He is a broadcaster that also left China and started out in Vegas, is now on the East Coast, but a fantastic show every day. Comments a lot on the War Room and his commentary and his show, and just another hero. These patriots, Luda, thank you for joining the show.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Luda is so important because the very first time Dr. Yan. So Dr. Yan, I want to turn to you now and get back to what we were talking about yesterday. One of the things you've told me, after you had the interview with Luda and you came to the United States, is why people in the United States are not focused on what the real problem is here. And the problem is this came from the CCP, this came from this lab in Wuhan. So I want to go back to, walk us through in detail why you're making this claim, given your position that this came from Wuhan and every other aspect that people are talking about is some sort of spin or to take your eye off the ball.
Okay, actually, I came to U.S. and people still not realize about this situation actually based in China and origin from CCP regime is because first, very importantly, from the beginning of this pandemic, CCP government is trying their best to recruit even scientific field and like the organization as WHO to cover up all these things, and then they make up a lot of lies to mislead people who get into this field and trace their false information to the other side. So these things make people cannot find the real information about this. And actually, this virus is not origin from nature, not from the bat by itself. It is just a virus based on a bat virus, which is discovered and owned by Chinese Communist Party, the military lab.
Okay, hang on for one second. When you say it's not from nature and it's not from a bat virus, that means it was made somehow. Walk us through, what is your evidence for that, and how can an American audience understand that? Because it's being spun here by the mainstream media, that bat woman, they show her all the time, and this bat. Walk us through, what do you mean it's not a bat virus and it's not natural, it's man-made?
Okay, so this is not a bat virus directly jump into human, and this is a virus based on a bat virus, which is discovered by PLA and owned by them, and going through the engineering modified in the lab and also going through the serial passage in the animals to make it focus on human. So that's why we can say it's very powerful for human being now. So what we can say is there are very solid evidence. Simply, I can tell our audience that it's like we check something based on our fingerprint, and for the virus, the fingerprint is their genome. So we can see all this kind of evidence from their genome. That's also why in the beginning of the outbreak, China government tried to postpone the publish of the genome sequence and even change it because they initially put some wrong genome sequence to NIH database. And these are the things later be reviewed by me through Mr. Luda's YouTube, and then they quickly the next day submit Batwoman Xi Jinli's Nature paper, which was published on 3rd February about the RATG13 virus. And then the CCP controlled and influenced the whole scientific field, and WHO, these people, they start to tell people this is the real origin and mislead, drive the attention from the real origin of the virus to the RATG13 and build something based on that.
Okay, you're saying, I want to go back, you're saying they originally did not, or inadvertently, they did put up the genome sequence and then took it down, or they put up a false one, and because you called it out, they put up the real one?
This story is like this because on 12th January this year, the first time and people know this sequence because the China government and the other scientists upload the first sequence isolated from the patient in Wuhan to NIH gene bank database. And at that time, my husband, one of the established virologists in coronavirus field, and also WHO, the expert, he did the check, and then he told me that this is a wrong genome sequence. Which
okay, so hold it. So on 12 January,
yes,
you were told on 12 January this is the wrong genome sequence?
Yes, my husband told me that because he did the research and he's also curious about the genome sequence.
He's also at the lab at Hong Kong and a very prominent virologist.
Exactly, he's in the same WHO reference lab and who is senior to me and also the best helper for Professor Malik Paris and Liu Peng.
Did you think that was pretty shocking that when you talked to your husband and other scientists that they would not put up the correct genome sequence, that they would not give that to NIH to put it into their database?
Yeah, that's something very, surprised because we never thought the genome sequence should be wrong because it's like fingerprint. You get it, you upload it. There is nothing can be wrong like this. Especially my husband clearly told me that this is something very weird. The wrong things happen inside.
And I want to make sure that our American audience understands this. You're saying that couldn't have been a mistake.
Yeah,
that had to be
no,
done.
It cannot be.
Why could it not be a mistake? Why would it have to be done deliberately?
So for the real motive, I think you have to ask the government, those people who control this genome sequence and all the things. But for us, we can understand it as 12th January, they upload the wrong one, which include some wrong information inside. And based on that, the virologist, the scientists cannot trace it back to the Zhoushan bat virus, which I mean the backbone for the SARS-CoV-2 owned by PLA. But one day later, 13th January, please notice that day is the day that the first overseas cases happened in Thailand. So that means people from overseas can also get a virus sample. They also can isolate it. And also people will see the problem between the wrong genome sequence and the real.
You're saying
genome
they would be caught in a lie. That this would be shown.
They can be. They know that because they didn't image their overseas patient come out so quickly. And there even no interval for this some mutant happen. So once the overseas scientists get the patient, they have the big chance to isolate the virus out. That's why on 14th January, we see the previous wrong genome sequence was replaced from the NIH database. That is the version 2. And they clearly mentioned the version 1 was replaced, which is very rare happen in gene bank database. And from that day, if you compare it, you can see among all the known genome sequence in the database and Zhoushan bat coronavirus, ZC45 and ZXC21, they are the one most close to the SARS-CoV-2.
Is the 14th January they put into the NIH, is that the correct genome sequence or still not?
That's the one kind of correct because 3 days later, again, they uploaded the third version, which is a little bit longer than previous one. And I did check for some important protein. I have checked between the 14th one and the 17th one. I see it's kind of okay, but also at that time, I didn't finish all the comparison. So there may be some other wrong information, important things.
Are you also saying that one of the reasons this was changed was because your interviews, you started to go on Luda's show, the YouTube show, and started to talk about this? Was that part of the reason you think that they understood that they were going to be outed, so they made these changes?
No, this is before. The 17th is before I get deliver the message through Luda's show. But what happened is we did that show on 19th January, Beijing time at night.
Yeah.
And after that, Beijing time 20th January, Professor Shi Zhengli, the bad woman's paper about RATG13 is submitted to Nature. And also, this one is published at the same day on the same topic on Nature with Professor Zhang Yongzhen's one, who was the one first published the genome sequence of SARS-CoV-2 and said this is most closely to Zhoushan bat virus. And to note, Professor Zhang Yongzhen got punished by this paper and his P3 lab was shut down.
Are you asserting that this is part of a cover-up by the CCP and in conjunction with either the reference lab in Hong Kong and others at either WHO, etc., to cover up their tracks, to cover up their actual complicity in this?
Yeah, cover up and even more than that, because for the experienced scientists and you have the basic knowledge, you come back to see this virus genome is like the fingerprint, as I said, and it's not difficult for them to realize the problem happened inside. It's basically like the virus and become the enhanced SARS virus with SARS functional part and with some other lethal part. And this thing is like the cow has a deer's head and has some rabbit's ear and also have the monkey's hand. I mean, please tell me how it comes from nature.
And that is because you're saying it's not in nature, and that is because this is trying to be was this a gain of function? In other words, were they doing experiments to try to come up with solutions for SARS and vaccines and therapeutics? Or is this a weaponization program to try to build something that could actually be used?
I'm the one who working on the vaccine development for several years, and I can tell you this is definitely not for vaccine, for solution of the SARS virus. Briefly, this is like if you want to make a toy gun for the kid, and you should remove the bullet, you should remove the harmful part. But in this version, it's like you said, okay, I'm now making the toy gun, and then I put some sharp knife on that, and make some missile on that, and then I give the kid that this is your toy.
So you're saying that there's zero chance that this just came from nature, and that this was a very well thought through program.
Even based on common sense, yes.
Pull up also the Wall Street Journal today to really support Dr. Yan. Dr. Yan, you've got the article in front of you. I know you say it's not totally technically correct, but the important thing here is the Atlantic Council. The guy is not not a fan of the anti-CCP movement, but even the mainstream media is starting to come to, and it's because I think of what you guys are doing to bring this word to the West. And one of the reasons people should think about this, even people who don't totally agree with the show, one of the great misses really here was about this virus in the summer. Remember, even Fauci and Birx and the mainstream media were all talking about the second wave, that it would all dissipate in the summer, etc. This thing has been, we're still in a surge of a first wave. And why? As Dr. Peter Navarro continues to say, and I support, it's impervious to heat and humidity. It's impervious to heat and humidity. Well, nobody would have thought that at the beginning. People actually argued the exact opposite. It was going to go away in the summer. That's why you could do these openings of the state, right? And then you had to worry about the second wave. Well, we're still in the burning inferno of a first wave. Why? Everybody got it wrong about this. Not if you listen to Dr. Yan, because Dr. Yan says you're thinking of it the wrong way. This did not come just from a bat. It had to be manipulated. And like she said, this is a virus that's got a head of a dragon, the arms of a monkey, and the feet of a whale. Right? It's a composite part.
Exactly.
You say it's like giving a kid a toy gun, but the toy gun's got an arrow on it, a rocket, a missile, and a big a round of a .45. Dr. Yan, how did you get to Luda? Because Luda's the very first individual to give you a voice in a platform that we all think. How did you get to Luda, and why did you decide to go to a guy who's streaming a live show of commentary about CCP every day?
Because I have listened to Miles School and Mr. Luda's show for a while, and especially since the Hong Kong moment, the China government tried to suppress all those kind of free speech about the truth. So I had to find out the reliable way to help me and support me to understand the situation, because I see the live broadcast in Hong Kong street and I see what is happening. But then the other side, from TV, from website, or controlled by CCP government, we can see we cannot see the truth. Everything is twisted, the wrong perspective. So I really need some true voice to support me, to support my understanding. And their show actually make me understand more about CCP's darkness. And at that time, when I start to do the investigation and realize the truth behind the COVID-19. And also, I didn't see the response from WHO, and I see China government don't want people to know the truth. So the key point is I have to find a reliable way to deliver the urgent message to people, to the world. And at that time, you cannot trust government, you cannot trust the main media, you cannot trust anything else. But I trust Luda is the only one media, because he's so strongly on the justice side and keep revealing the truth to people, delivering the right message. So I believe him. I think he can deliver the message to people, because he will understand what happened and he will help it to go to the public. So yeah.
And this was building up, and basically on the 19th of January. The 19th of January, which would have been, correct me if I'm wrong, would have been around Lunar New Year. Lunar New Year should have been taking place, right? I know it was canceled, but So by January 19th, you knew that this was being suppressed by the authorities, by the University of Hong Kong basically lab, by the World Health Organization, and certainly by the Beijing CDC, the people that should have known better. This being suppressed. And so you thought at the time, I've got to get this message out to the world. I'll do it in Luda. Weren't you afraid by going on the show and doing the show and giving the information to Luda that your life could be in jeopardy?
Yeah, I know. The moment I know, when I decide to deliver this message to Mr. Luda, I know my life is in danger, life-threatening. And at any moment, even I just try to contact him, they may just catch me because, we have the huge surveillance all over the world under CCP even. So the only thing I'm worried about is whether I can deliver the message before I get disappeared by CCP government. And luckily, I did it. And I was very scared, yes. So the day actually before his broadcast, several hours before, 19th January, Beijing time in the afternoon, there was a globally technical problem happened on WhatsApp. And at that time, I cannot send any message and picture. So I was in the library in the University of Hong Kong. I was so scared. I thought, oh, come on, CCP found me because I had already contacted Luda for 2 days, explain things to him and persuade him. So at that time, I just quickly remove my WhatsApp and install again, remove, and then turn to Skype. I leave all my real message, my photo, my working place, and to Mr. Luda, and I tell him I won't suicide. Once I disappear, so that means the government did something like they did to Hong Kong protesters every day.
Hold on, hang on. You actually told Luda, I'm telling you right now, I will never commit suicide. So if I disappear, they say I got depressed and I ended up dropping off a building. I was thrown. It was not me.
Yes, because this is a word that all the Hong Kong protesters know, and they've been told this to their friend, their family, because the Hong Kong government, the policemen, they said, oh, these people died naked in the sea, or they suddenly suicide without waiting letter, but there is nothing suspicious. They suicide. So this happens every day in China.
Then this is the 19th of January. If you go back, your supervisor, if I remember the interview yesterday correctly, your supervisor around the 8th or 9th of January, sometime at the end of the first week, you were in contact with Beijing CDC, you were continuing your investigation, you were sitting there going, something's wrong here. And they told you about the red line and watch out that they could disappear you. Is that you were told this or this you had this discussion?
Yeah. My supervisor Leopold actually told me even before he assigned me to do the second investigation. He is like warning me and to be careful, if not you will be disappeared. And also when I feedback to him about the information, not only from CDC, also from China CDC and also Wuhan and other cities doctors, I told him and he again tell me, okay, be careful, and if not, you will be disappeared. Yeah.
When they tell you will be disappeared, what does that phrase mean to someone that's Chinese? When they tell you will be disappeared.
Oh, that means you even not exist in the world after a while. No one will remember you. No one can see your information. If they want to search you online, no information, and your family is shut up, or even they are disappeared too, and no one can remember you. They are not allowed to do that.
Okay, this is Stephen K. Bannon, War Room Pandemic. Dr. Yan and Luda, two heroes. You want to see what the face of heroism is, just see on our broadcast. These two, this is the fight of the 21st century. It's a fight for freedom. The only way America is going to be totally free, you have to assist in the freedom of the Chinese people. This is the apparatus. The Chinese Communist Party oppresses 1.4 billion people, and in doing that, in that business model by the elites of the world, they suppress and take their freedom away from the American people. We're going to return in just a moment. War Room Pandemic. Listen, this is how the Berlin Wall came down. This is the Patriots and freedom-loving people in Eastern Europe and in Russia eventually freed themselves with the a major assist from President Reagan, Pope John Paul II, Margaret Thatcher, the entire West. The freedom of the Chinese people is the single biggest event in the first half of the 21st century. The CCP is going to fall. It's not a question of whether they're going to fall or not. They're going to fall. It's just, does it happen quickly or does it happen in a couple of years? Remember, this is the unfinished work of the 20th century. The last major group of gangsters, and that's why I call him General Secretary Xi. And we know this upsets them now, but everybody in the U.S. government is calling General Secretary Xi, not President Xi, because you're not a legitimate president. It's not a legitimate government. You lied about what you were going to do in 1949. You promised the Chinese people rule of law. You promised them democracy. You promised them land reform. None of that. You've stolen all their money, and with your collaborators and appeasers in the West, and this is not Steve Bannon, it's Attorney General William Barr, and 4 of those collaborators are up right now on Capitol Hill, right? And I hope today they get into this thing of China about what they've done to the Chinese people and how they've oppressed the Chinese people and how somebody like Apple, woke Apple, right? That Republicans and certain people in the Trump administration kowtow to, woke Apple using slave labor, right? Using slave labor. Nike and Apple's products to me should be banned in the United States of America. Using slave labor in China. Woke Nike and woke Apple. That's all a head fake and a diversion. Their wokeness is a diversion. Their business model is based upon the back-breaking labor at slave labor, forced labor prices, cost in China. That's where their margins are so high. This is Tim Cook, is the biggest phony in the world. The guys at Nike, biggest phonies in the world. Don't give me your wokeness. Look about the people who you're stealing from. And here's the thing with the establishment and the companies. It's all going to come out. The Chinese Communist Party is going to fall. There is no doubt. It's going to fall like the Russians fell. It's going to fall like the Nazis fell. It's going to fall like the Italian fascists fell. It's going to fall like the military junta in Japan fell. All the gangsters eventually fall. And here we got the weapons of information and tech. We got the of finance. Hong Kong could be the anvil. The dollar could be the hammer. We have all of that. It's going to fall. And when it falls, the Ludas and the Dr. Yans and the people they represent, the people that fought for their freedom, are going to demand an accounting. They're going to demand from Henry Kissinger and from Steve Schwarzman and from Larry Fink. Oh, yeah, all Republican donors. All the Democrats in business with them. All of you guys, Ray Dalio, all of it. All of it. Every penny that was laundered out of China, every penny Wan Xishan, every penny that General Secretary Xi, all the hundreds of billions of dollars laundered through H&A, a money laundering scam brought up by Miles Groves. They pulled the plug on the VOA live interview. Why? Miles Groves saying, hey, H&A is nothing but a front organization, CCP, money launderers. Oh, can't do that. Chinese ambassador doesn't like it. Let's pull the plug. Guess what? 100% correct. There's going to be a full accounting. At first, Aluda, it took courage to put her up. Because as controversial as you are, once you do that, you're essentially accusing the Chinese Communist Party of premeditated mass murder, which is all the blood of the hands of the 100,000 who have died throughout the world. Didn't you think it's, hey, I'm crossing a line here that now I've always criticized the guys, but now I'm accusing of being mass murderers. That I'm crossing a line and I will be disappeared. Can you translate that, Dr. Yan?
沃德先生，简单的来讲，就是班农先生想知道，就是你当初把我这个消息爆出来的时候，有没有考虑到这个不只是一个传递消息的问题，这个还涉及到这个对中共的一个指控，因为它涉及到一个大屠杀的潜在的，当时潜在，现在是已经发生大屠杀。那么这个事情对你来讲，有没有什么你自己会有没有什么顾虑？然后你有没有觉得这个会是一件非常危险的事情？你当时是怎么想的？
谢谢班农先生。这个当时就是1月19号的这个严博士通过我们的节目传递的5个重要的信息。第一，在62例的时候是人传人；第二是大爆发，只有62例的时候大爆发；第三，中共隐瞒是疫情；第四，就是这个强变异病毒的强变；第五，就是这个它是来自中共实验室，而这个5件事情后来一一得到验证啊，这是最关键的。但是当时的情况下，实际上我们作为我来说也是非常紧张，因为如果说这个事情如果最终没有被验证的话，那就是也会面临很多的这种我觉得可能指控啊或者造谣啊这些啊。
So first, thank you, Mr. Benno. On 19th January, when Dr. Yan first delivered the message to me, there are 5 points, which are all verified finally. The 5 points are first, the 62 cases at that time, but it's already human-to-human transmission, and also there will be a big potential outbreak, and these are the strong mutant virus, and also China government CCP is covering it up about the truth, and then this is not from nature, it's from the PLA's lab. So I know this is very important things. At that time, if I deliver the wrong message to the world, that means I will face to a lot of accusation and later a lot of problem.
Wow, impressive. Okay, we're going to return in just a second. Do you believe what the Wall Street Journal called for, that the CCP will ever voluntarily turn over full access to the Wuhan lab?
Yeah, but I want to address another thing. It's not only related to the Wuhan Virus Institute. It's also related to all these kind of research institute controlled by CCP or influenced by that. I mean, even not only in mainland China, for example, in my lab, the WHO reference lab based in Hong Kong, they all controlled by CCP government, and they will do anything the CCP government wants them to do because they dare not to against their ratings.
Oh, hang on, real quickly. We got a couple minutes left. WHO, you're a WHO reference lab, which essentially means you were the supervising the WHO's eyes and ears into mainland China from Hong Kong to keep an eye on this. Was the WHO complicit in this cover-up, and to the best of your knowledge?
Okay, the thing I know is WHO and mainland government actually based on our lab in Hong Kong. It's like the bridge between them and makes them have more communication and better relationship to each other. So the WHO expert, we have several top experts in the world in my lab, and they should and they're responsible to report these things happen in China as a potential public health risk to WHO, and WHO should be responsible to tell it to the world on time, in time. And what happened is when these experts, I'm sure they know it because I directly told my supervisor and my husband, I told him, he directly told Mike Paris, but this expert did nothing, and maybe they also discussed with WHO, but final result is they decide to collaborate with CCP government and do nothing. And also the worst thing is later these scientists stand up to support the origins of nature theory to CCP government and also help them to do this kind of scientific lies and cheat all the world. You can come back to see how many wrong things, wrong instructions come from WHO since COVID-19.
You're saying lies, cover-ups, collaboration with the CCP from WHO, no doubt in your mind?
Of course.
Dr. Yan will be joining us tomorrow. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And I really want to tell you how much you helped for our Hong Kong protesters, for all the people who are against CCP government and try to tell truth to the world. For our whistleblower movement, you really give a lot of support, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Look, it's an honor for us to do it. You guys are heroes. You inspire us every day because it's the freedom of the Chinese people, the great event of the first half of the 21st century. And with the freedom of the Chinese people, guess what? Come the freedom of the American people. It's through your freedom we're going to get our freedom back. That's what this fourth turning is about. It's about oppressive dictatorship run by cultural Marxists or actual Marxists versus the Alliance of Liberty. You guys have thrived in the United States, and you're going to thrive more with liberty and freedom. Okay. Tomorrow, we'll be back. War and Pandemic.